Star Wars 7x7 episode 2540. So the E3 conference is over. That's the big gaming conference of the year. And shockingly, disappointingly, no Star Wars announcements coming out of that conference. So we're going to reset where we are with Star Wars video games with an eye on storytelling video games. And there's one maybe little thing that happened in a side conversation that maybe sheds a little light on something, and we'll get to that too. Punch it. Hey Bibble Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So E3 is the big electronics expo conference. It happened from June 12th, Saturday, through June 15th, Tuesday, and across 4 days of big announcements and reveals and whatnot. Nothing happened with Star Wars, unfortunately. Yeah, them's the way it goes sometimes, I guess. And so really the only thing that happened was, there was a side interview that happened related to Ubisoft, and they touched upon the massive open world story-driven game that they're going to be developing for Lucasfilm. The one thing that sort of came out of it is that it's going to be the game that they work on after they finish working on their Avatar-based game, which is also a big open world game. And apparently that's also the game that, as the Ubisoft folks met with the Disney folks and the Lucasfilm game folks, they figured out, oh yeah, these are the right folks to do this for us. So, that's good. But the fact that they're saying that it would be after the Avatar game, or at least that's when they're going to really ramp up on it. Well, the Avatar game is scheduled to come out in 2022, and so that means that the real ramp up on the Star Wars open world game is not going to happen until then, whatever real ramp up means. And so we're probably looking at 23 or 24 for the release of whatever this game is. But there was a note about being on the phone with people at Massive who are helping to develop the story, and that there's great excitement over where they're taking the game, so sounds positive and wonderful. So at least there's that. But that was pretty much the only new thing that happened in and around the E3 conference as far as Star Wars video games go. So what does that mean for the rest of Star Wars video gaming? As I said at the top, we'll kind of reset where we are in some things. And right now there are only 2 games that are, possibly coming for 2021. One of them is, maybe story related. Maybe it's just going to introduce elements that could affect story, and that's Star Wars Hunters. That's the cross-team arena gameplay situation that's coming to the Nintendo Switch sometime this year. And then of course there's the Lego Star Wars The Complete Skywalker Saga, which has unfortunately been oft delayed. And yeah, we don't know when that's coming out. And again, similar situation where that one may not necessarily affect story per se, but as we've talked about on the podcast, the process of going through story elements is similar in Lego canon, if you will, to what they look at real canon. In other words, they don't go against major story grain stuff like that. So yeah, remains to be seen what'll happen. The next thing that is potentially coming after that is something slated for the first quarter of 2022. So there was an investor call a while back with Electronic Arts, and one of the things that they said at the time was that they were anticipating dropping a new Star Wars game by the end of fiscal year 22, which for them is March of 2022. Of course, nobody knows what that game might be, but there are a couple of candidates kicking around out there. One of them is a suggestion that maybe it is a spin-off from Battlefront 2 and the story mode that happened in that particular game. That, of course, featured the folks of Inferno Squad and Iden Versio's journey from being a part of the Empire to becoming part of the Rebellion and then Alliance, and going all the way to being a bit of a prequel of sorts to the sequel era storytelling as well. So the folks who play Iden Versio and Admiral Garrick Versio and Del Meeko do the voices and also did the motion capture had been called in to do some additional motion capture work for something somewhere, and were having little like social media exchanges and whatnot, but nobody knows what that was about. It's just kind of interesting that those three particular folks were in one place at the same time, and so that of course has sparked the fire around rumors of a Battlefront 2 spinoff. The other thing that is kicking around out there from the rumor mill standpoint is a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which is generally considered a raving success as far as Star Wars storytelling goes and video game stuff goes. So there's been a lot of noise around the fact that yes, of course a sequel to this is going to happen, but how real that is, or if it's just punditry, as it were, we don't know just yet. There's been nothing concrete. We do know that the whole EA contract is supposed to be up with Star Wars by 2023. We don't necessarily know when in 2023. It could be early, could be late, don't know. But knowing that it's coming to an end, it wouldn't be a surprise to see them try to get not one but two more games at least out in that window. And that's of course even presuming that things are done with EA once 2023 arrives, which that isn't assured by any stretch. They could still be going on and decide to renew that contract and just decide to do it with non-exclusivity, as it were. And as I was researching this episode, I did come across rumors of a couple other games that may or may not be in development, and the rumors are just so high level and very whispery, and so I wouldn't necessarily put any stock in them just yet, but they do kind of make sense on their faces at least. One of them suggesting that a game developed around The Mandalorian may be in the works somehow, and another suggesting that a game developed around the High Republic could be in the works somehow. So we know that the High Republic initiative was supposed to just be books and comics, but obviously they have expanded that to include VR with the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge thing, and having an element of that play into the High Republic, and also the Acolyte series that they announced on the Investor Day in December of last year, and that's going to touch on High Republic stuff too. So they've certainly made it clear that they are not just limiting to books and comics, so it wouldn't be all that much of a surprise to consider a High Republic game. And then of course The Mandalorian is just hugely successful, right? So why wouldn't you want to try to expand that character into other avenues? So again, those are just very little whispery things, and not necessarily from serious credible, all right, this is actually a thing that we need to keep an eye on things, but kind of fun to think about nonetheless. And so that right now is where we stand on the video game front for Star Wars, and that is going to do it for this episode of the show. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.